everybody, and welcome back to another episode of El Koki Otaku. Today with us, we have a very special guest. She voices Nagisa Shiota and Kunudon in Assassination Classroom, Fiona Frost in Spy Family, Ichika Nakano in the Quintessential Quintuplets, Gabi Braun in Attack on Titan, Pochita in Chainsaw Man, Raeliana McMillan in Why Raeliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion, Aries Boreas Grey Rat in Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, and Ruka Urushibara in Steins Gate Zero. And honestly, the list keeps on going and going and going. So without any further ado, please welcome Lindsay Seidel.
Woo! Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks to you. I mean, it honestly is an honor having you here.
Oh, you're so kind.
Like we said in backstage, we really never thought like you'd say yes to this.
Well, I'm really glad that I did, and that I luckily right now, as far as like my schedule was concerned, I was like, yeah, no, I have time for that. That sounds fun. So.
All right. So you know what? Let's get right down into it. Let's get down to business. You know what? I want to talk first about an anime that has been going on throughout a decade already, and it's defined a generation right now to the point that people who haven't watched anime have gotten into anime, and I'm talking about none other than Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Just such a big one that actually is going to come to a conclusion later this year. So you have Gabi Braun, or as some people on the internet call her, Gabi God, just because of her role. How has it been? First of all, for those people who are living under a rock, who have never watched Attack on Titan for I don't know what reason, how would you even describe this show?
Oh God, yeah. How would you describe the show? I would say like I have told people before, like at conventions, who ask like, oh, so like what? Because a lot of times it's like, I don't know, a boyfriend and girlfriend, and like one is a fan of anime and the other one hasn't really watched anime, and they're like, okay, well, what would you recommend I watch? And I'm like, well, like Attack on Titan is as high quality as it gets, and it's really well done and very, very good. But you're probably not going to like it if you're not into stuff that is more on the dark side.
On the very dark side.
Very dark. It's very dark. It's there's some gore, so you have to be okay with that. It's not a lighthearted, like you just watch it casually and it's makes you just feel good. It's not one of those shows.
Very true.
But I don't know how I would even describe it past that. Like I can say like thematically, it's it's dark, it's gory, it has a lot of themes that are there's like a clear reference to kind of like World War II stuff. Yeah.
Let me put it this way. When Attack on Titan first came out, I hadn't watched anything. It was 2013, so yeah, literally 10 years ago. And that's when Onyx and I, we actually met in 2012, so 2013 was just like the year after. So yes, Onyx was already making sure. Yeah. Onyx already was making sure that I was watching anime like consistently and faithfully. So
Good job,
what did I do? It just so happened that I tuned into Netflix and I see this anime, Attack on Titan. I'm like, what is this? It just said mature. I'm like, okay, let's put it on. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, let's put it on. And I just remember I'm watching this anime, but like at the end of the anime, when the bad thing happens to the main character's mom, my face the entire time was like, The hell? What am I watching? Like my jaw dropped and I couldn't stop. I had to put on the next one. And then I'm telling Onyx, you gotta watch this anime. It's so good. I can't believe what's going on there. And then he's watching and he's like, what is this? Like, it doesn't matter. And then boom, exactly. Boom, it's the phenomenon that it is today.
I used to describe it as the Game of Thrones of anime.
That's what I was actually about to say, as I was just having that thought. I was like, it's kind of like for someone who doesn't have like an anime reference, it's like if you've seen Game of Thrones, it's like the Game of Thrones of anime. Exactly.
It's like, don't fall in love, don't marry to any characters. Mm-hmm. There's no guarantee how long.
Nobody's safe.
Nobody for real. And something fun fact, that's one of my mom's favorite anime. Like, she loved this series. She died. Like, right now she's dying with what's happening to Mikasa. She called me on depression. Oh my god, I can't believe what's happening to poor Mikasa. And that Gabi, how hard that girl, how she's so young, how hard she can be. So she's living this series.
That is so funny. I love that your mom watches anime. That's amazing.
No, and for real, this is an anime that's not only let's start this. It's not for kids. It's rated mature.
No, it's not for kids. And I have to say, like, it's concerning because I will tell you at many events that I go to,
yes.
So many little kids come up and tell me how much they love Attack on Titan. I'm like, where are your parents?
Like, why are you watching this? You're not.
Why are you watching this? And then same thing with like Chainsaw Man too.
Oh my god,
like, that is not for children. But they will come like with their parents, and their parents are like, oh, it's like a 5-year-old kid, and they're like, oh, little David or whatever loves Pochita, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, Pochita's really cute, but the show is not for kids. Wow. Very clearly not for kids. Whatever. Anyway, I don't tell them that. It's not my place, but...
yeah, like, it happened to me a few weeks ago, being in Puerto Rico in a Ponce town, on a convention activity, anime convention activity. And I'm on stage speaking about what's going on with anime trendings. And whenever they mention of one of those popular anime, I see all these kids like, yeah! And they're like, mature! And the daddy were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, guys, parental advice here, guys. So please watch out what your kids are watching.
Right. Check it out before you let your kids watch it.
I lost count how many times I say anime is not always for kids, guys. Watch out,
I would say
please.
that anime is like usually not for kids.
Do they?
I agree.
There are like, because there is so much anime out there, there's such an abundance. There are plenty of shows that are appropriate for kids, but I would say that still, though, the majority of the ones that are out there have some kind of mature content that maybe wouldn't be like a great idea for a small child.
I was just thinking that back then in the 90s, we saw like Ranma and a half, but now that I think about it, like, I wonder if that reclassification was still the same, or they will spike it up to something higher than was back then.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's different. I do very much think it's different because when you look at some of movies or kids shows or anything, they're like, okay, it's rated for kids, but then you're like, why are they showing this? Like, you shouldn't really show this. And then when you see the TV shows nowadays, they're like a little bit more restricted in that sense.
Yeah.
Regarding the classification or rating.
Yeah.
But what about the experience of giving your voice to Gabi, a very iconic character, which
and polarizing.
At the beginning was kind of very hated her character, and then people are like falling in love with her. Like, she went from the dark to the altar now.
Yeah, so I will say that as an actor, it's like a dream role to get to play, not just because it's in such an amazing show with such fantastic writing and all the characters are just written so well with their character development, and they all are, you know, they're not surface level characters. All of them have depth to them, and they're complicated, and they're not, you know, black and white as far as like this character is good and this character is bad, you know, and that's like real people. So that it makes it a lot more interesting and a lot more rewarding as an actor to get to portray a character like that. And as I'm sure you're well aware, oftentimes in anime, characters are very surface level, especially female characters. And so it's a rare treat when we get to voice a character that has a lot more going on to them and goes through a whole journey and has all this character development and is complicated like that. Now, the unpleasant side of voicing Gabi is I have gotten a lot of hate.
No way.
Oh yeah, for the character. And it's really interesting because I have voiced over the span of my anime voiceover career, which I've now been doing for almost 15 years. I've voiced so many characters that are like straight up evil, where like the only characteristic that is shown of the character is just that they are the villain and they enjoy killing people, and like that's all there is to them. And I've never gotten any hate for those kinds of characters. But I think part of what it is that with Attack on Titan, because the characters are so well written, the fans fall in love with certain characters a lot more than they might in other shows, and they become very attached. And that's a testament, again, to how well the show is written. And so when certain characters are killed, and no spoilers to anyone who's watching who's maybe not caught up, Gabi is involved in the death of a character that is many people's favorite character. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I got a lot of hate because I guess, I don't know what it is. There are so many people, I came to learn, that have a really hard time separating the actor from like a character they play, which is especially interesting to me given that this is an animated show. So it's like obviously not real. Like it's obviously fiction.
You're not the first and you're not the last voice actor to say this.
Yeah, it's kind of a universal experience among us, but it's still like, this was my first real experience with like getting like real hate. Like I was getting death threats online, like crazy stuff. And I'm like,
my God,
what? Like, this is a show. Like it's not real. It's all fiction. That should be obvious. And also like, do these people not know like what an actor is? Is that like not a concept they're familiar with?
I'm so in shock because, okay, I hear news about this in Japan, which is kind of more easy to fall in that trap because in Japanese, you are the first voice of that character.
Right.
People directly link it. But when we speak about dub, you're technically being the second voice over that character because you're already a primary in Japan, which I thought that would never happen here in America, that they hate like you're describing it.
Yeah.
But I had to just remember this week we have an interview with director Shannon Reed, and he said this word: voice actors are not the characters. They lend their voice, but they are not the characters.
Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same thing as live action actors, which I do live action as well. I've always done both. It's just the voiceover roles is what I'm most known for, because here in Dallas, there's a lot more voiceover work than there is on-camera work. Most of the on-camera work is for like commercials and stuff. So that's most of the on-camera work I do is for commercials. And so, you know, it's not like I have like fans from like my Southwest Airlines commercial or whatever. You know, it's not like terribly memorable, but anyway. So yeah, like, you know, I mean, I know that it does happen. Like, speaking of Game of Thrones, it does happen to on-camera actors as well. Like the actor who played Joffrey in
Right.
Game of Thrones. He's like, the fact that we all despised that character so much when watching it. That goes to show what an amazing actor the guy is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you still understand, like, that's not who he is.
It was like what I was gonna
people that had a
say.
hard time.
It was like what I was gonna say. It's like in Harry Potter, like everybody knows Harry Potter, or a majority of people know Harry Potter. People really don't care about Voldemort, but then they really hate Umbridge, and they're like, okay. But it's the same thing. It's like,
it's interesting.
you just acted so well. You just did it so well that it evoked too many people's emotions.
I mean, sadly, that's not true.
That's what I tell myself to make myself feel better now.
No, it is true.
Actually, I'm choosing to take it as a compliment.
No, that's good.
It is true. Technically, we have a panel on our convention called Anime Characters That We Love to Hate. So technically, these characters, when they evoke these feelings in the public, in the people, it's because they're very well they're very well performed, they're very well developed. So they're good characters.
The way Gabi was written, it was obviously intentional that she was not supposed to be a well-liked character. That was kind of the whole point, because I think most people have come to realize now that the whole thing was like, you're introduced to this character that's clearly like not likable. She's obnoxious, she's brash, she's not very thoughtful about she's immature, all these things that are like not desirable qualities. And then, of course, she's involved in the death of a very well-loved character, which, that was just the icing on top of everything else. But then you start to see the parallels between her character and Eren.
Yes.
And it's like, wait, maybe this isn't as black and white as I thought it was. And that was kind of, that was my takeaway. I thought that seemed like what the intention of the writing was, and what the point of Gabi was, and why that character was written into the manga, was to kind of get that point across, and to show that people are capable of change, and it's just not as simple as like you're a good person or you're a bad person. It's a lot more nuanced than that. How were you brought up? Were you exposed to anything else? How much say do we really have, especially when we're kids? Because we have to remember, Gabi's like 12 years old, right? At 12, you don't know how to think for yourself. You haven't learned to question what like authority figures have taught you yet. And if you have, like, you're kind of ahead of the curve there. That's not how it is for most 12-year-olds. So for all those reasons, I thought it was a brilliant character, even though it was like, this is a character people hate, of course. And it never bothered me at all to hear like people hating on the character, because that was intentional, right? And characters like that are really important to shows like this. Like, it would be really boring if you didn't have those kinds of characters. You can't really like make a show that's dark like this without characters that evoke those kinds of feelings, right? But what just really blew my mind was when the hate was specifically directed like at me, Lindsay. And people literally were saying to me, how could you kill
No way
XYZ? And I'm like, I've never killed anybody. Like, what are you talking about? Also, this character you're talking about that died is a character. So like, actually nobody died. These characters aren't people who are real. I know, again, like I get like getting attached to a character. That happens to all of us when we really love a show or even a book or whatever, and we, become very attached. But I was always under the impression that like the vast majority of people have an understanding of like the separation of like reality and fiction. And what's also interesting too is like, I don't know, it's like, do people think that this is the only character I've ever voiced? Or if they, like, do they just discount the rest of all the characters I play? And it's like, well, Gabi's who I really am. You know, all these other ones are just me pretending. I don't know. It's just weird. But the very craziest thing of all was that, speaking of the, you know, original Japanese version, so I'm not a manga reader. So I've never known ahead of when I go in to record each episode. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a surprise for me. I prefer it that way. I think it's more fun that way. And so I didn't know that this was in Gabi's future. So before I even recorded the episode that, you know, we've been referencing that really made people really hate Gabi, I started getting those death threats over like Instagram DMs before I'd even recorded that episode. And so I was really confused. And I'm like, okay, I've played like plenty of annoying, obnoxious characters before, but I've never gotten death threats over it. Like, what are these people talking about? And so I was so confused. And what it was is the Japanese episode had been released at that point. And so they had just watched the subtitled version and then went online to specifically seek out who the English voice actor was when I hadn't even recorded that episode yet to start sending me hate messages. So that was like really wild to me. And I was so confused. And so I had to do some reading online, like, wait, what are these people talking about? Because like, I'm very confused. And then I was like, oh, they're talking about, I guess, this next episode that I'm going to be recording next week or whatever. But yeah, so that was wild.
So
I'm just surprised that people go out of their way to actually do this. Like they actually spend time.
I think it also just goes to show in general too that a lot of people have this problem with the internet in general. And even aside from actors, just etiquette. Like online bullying with people is, I think that people, you know, when people do that online but wouldn't necessarily do that with people in person, they're not really thinking about that it's a real person on the other end who is going to be reading that. Like, you're not shouting things out into the void. There's a real person on the other end receiving those messages. And then on top of that, especially with actors, I think a lot of times fans of shows they either think that we just are our characters, or they don't consider at all who's behind the voice or the character, and think that, I don't know, that just comes out of nowhere magically or something. Or there's also the problem of like, they just idolize us and think like we're gods or something. And I'm like, we're just normal people. We just have a weird job. A fun job, but it's, you know, like, we're just normal people. And a lot of people don't consider that, you know, or don't think about that, and like don't realize like we have feelings too. And it's like, it doesn't feel nice to get like hateful messages. And you know, I have a pretty thick skin as far as like if someone's like criticizing my performance or something and they just like didn't like, you know, how my voice sounded or whatever. But, you know, when it gets to the point of death threats in this day and age, like, it does make me like a little bit, like, I had moments where I'm like, okay, well, like, should I be afraid for my safety? Should I like not be going to conventions right now? Like, where people can find me? And, you know, obviously everything ended up being fine and nothing was behind any of those messages. And I haven't gotten those messages. I only got back like around the time of that episode airing, both in Japanese and then in English. I still get people who I meet who come up to my table at conventions when they realize that I am the voice of Gabi, because of, I have like prints on my table of that character. Because like, some people love her. Or like you were saying, like she is also a character that a lot of people like love to hate. Some people want to get like a print autograph because it's like they hate the character, but it's like they love to hate her, and which is cool. That's great. Anyway, but yeah, some people, even in person, they don't threaten my life or anything like that to where they would then get escorted out by security. But they will like start giving me a really hard time about like, they're like, why would you like do something like that? I'm like, do you mean like, why would I agree to voice the character? Or like, are you implying that like it was my choice that the character
you go up to a balloon?
And so I had to explain to them. I've had so many conversations with people in person where I'm like, you have to understand, like I'm just an actor, and the actor's job is to perform the script that is given to them. We don't have a say at all in what the characters say. We certainly don't have a say in what the characters do in the plot. And actually, neither do the writers of the show. It's the author of the manga. So if you like are really upset and you really feel the need to like let somebody know, whoever is responsible for the death of your favorite character, know that you are not pleased with that, then what you need to be doing is reaching out to the author of the manga. And nobody who I've told that to has liked that answer. They're all like, well, but like you're the voice of the character, so like you are her. And I'm like,
oh
no, I'm not.
May I ask, what is the average age or the window of age of these people? Like, we're speaking about teenagers, pre-teenagers, or grown-up people?
I would say older teens through like late 20s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ouch. That's
what's really interesting is a lot of the people who I've met who love the character are like preteens.
Oh,
interesting. And
I'm like, I don't like know what to like think about that. Sorry, I just gave you a nice view of this giant.
No, I was to say, bring it with you to the camera. He's cool.
Yeah, I need him for
the sloth.
This is a giant stuffed sloth that was gifted to my toddler son. So yeah. Anyway. That's what that is, if anyone was wondering.
So like, bring it to the camera already.
He'll just hang out here, and anytime I need a hug, I'll just reach over.
So can we say that if any PhD student or psychology want to reach you, do a good analysis, they can reach you for data? Because that's a good area for any psychology PhD student.
It's really interesting. It is very interesting. And also I will say actually that I think it's important to note, I have a dog hair on me. Sorry. The vast majority of the people who I meet in person, who have seen the show, are fans of the show, are very, very kind to me, and don't have that issue with like separating, me from my character, or like understanding that like it's a fictional show, it's a made up story. So it's not like it's like most people or whatever, but I've had, many lovely people who come up and they ask me like, have you like gotten hate? Like, cause I know that the Attack on Titan like fan community can be like kind of crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I've gotten some. And then they're always like very apologetic on behalf of like other fans of the show, which is very sweet or whatever. But, yeah, I've heard from a lot of people. They're like, I don't know. Yeah, there's just something about Attack on Titan fans in particular that they have like some of them have an especially hard time like separating fiction from reality.
But
I don't know.
it is the industry. Just a parenthesis. We just have a case with another series of last season, Oshinoko, where it have an arc of suicide prevention, very dark arc.
Yeah.
We thought that people would learn the lesson from that. Fans went against the family of the victim, which is like, how you guys didn't learn the lesson? And I thought, like, okay, the news spread around, so people going to learn from the arc and from the what happened, and that's going to be everybody learn. And no, we were wrong. Even in America, for another incident from the same arc, people were like, am I starting to lose hope in humanity? Like, guys, the lesson is clear, crystal clear over there. But anyway, definitely, there are more good people.
There are, yes. I felt like that was like important to say, because I realized like it might be sounding like I'm saying like that's most people, and that's the main reaction that I, have gotten from the character is, people being nasty toward me, and that's not the case at all. I would say that more people express that they don't really like the character very much, more than people expressing that they love the character. But I have no problem with that at all. Like, that was very much expected. The character was written that way to, not exactly be well loved for the most part. Although, like we said before, there are plenty of people, especially now with where we're at now in the show, who have come to actually love her, or at the very least, like understand her a little bit more, and not have so much hate toward the character.
Definitely. I always said there's, when we had this negative group, they're not more, they're just louder. They make way more noise. But the good people are more quiet.
It's so funny. Yeah. And that's with everything, right? The people who have the negative things to say, like, they're so much louder. So it makes it seem like there are more of them than there are.
You know what? Let's talk right now about a polar opposite anime that is not polarizing. It did not bring about hate. However, this character, she did some questionable things that people may have not liked. Talking none other than Ichika Nakano in the Quintessential Quintuplets.
How did I know that's what you were going to say?
Because I have to talk about Onyx's favorite slice of life anime, because he's a slice of life guy.
I think that's so awesome. I have to say with that show too, I had no idea going into it when I was cast in it and first started working on it, because I've worked on so many slice of life animes over the course of my career, and I just thought it was just going to be another slice of life anime that's just like pleasant and nice and fun to work on, but like not that many people end up watching it or whatever. And so it was like such a fun surprise that it ended up being such a popular series, and it's still like it makes me smile so much. You'd think I'd be used to it by now because it's been popular for a good while now, but still when I go to conventions and I get so many people talking to me about the Quintessential Quintuplets, I'm like, oh my gosh, like people do really watch it. That's so fun. That's so awesome. But yeah, I had such a great time working on that show. And it's actually one of the few characters that I've voiced, especially like a main character or like a bigger character, where I actually just completely use my normal speaking voice and I don't change it at all. Most of the characters I play, I'll at least make some changes. Like for Gabi, for example, in Attack on Titan, she sounds a lot like my normal speaking voice. It's not like I, do some crazy cartoon voice for her, but because she is, like 12 years old, I make my voice sound like younger, and so it's not going to sound like how I'm sounding right now, but it's still like recognizable as me, if that makes sense. But for Ichika, especially because she's the oldest, by like, what do they say, like 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
because they're quintuplets. So, but yeah, so she's like the mature one and the one who acts as the older sister. And so, oftentimes for female characters who are teenagers, they're supposed to be like cutesy and whatever. And so oftentimes us voice actresses will cutesy up our voice. But for this one in particular, I was like, no, I just want to use my normal speaking voice, because I think that helps make her sound like more grounded and more mature, especially in contrast to then the other girls having that more like typical anime kind of voice and vibe, if that makes sense. So it was especially fun for that reason. But as far as addressing some things that Ichika did, people didn't love. No spoilers, but
we can spoil here. It's been released a while ago, for like 2 years.
Yeah, but I don't want. You can spoil it. I don't want to spoil it because I don't want people can be mad at you. I don't want them to be mad at you.
Okay, I take it. I'm blaming.
She doesn't need any more death threats.
You're right.
And also, I see this generation, they like spoils. That every time I'm speaking, they're like, oh yeah, we like spoils. And I'm here like, wait, what?
Good point.
So where were you going with Ichika, what you did?
Well, I'm still not going to be the one to say it. But I will say that, like, yeah, I agree. Of course, Ichika was in the wrong. Like, I think that's obvious. But I think the redeeming thing is that, like, she does recognize that, like, what she did wasn't right, and felt bad about it and felt guilt over it. Like, it's not like she felt like she was in the right or anything. Like, she made a mistake. We all make mistakes. I can tell you, and if anyone thinks this is a spoiler, sorry, but this is not really a spoiler. I mean, come on. There were Futaro had 5 choices here. Okay, so when that happened in the show, I was like, okay, so he's not going to choose her.
Yeah.
Because I was like, there's no way the writers are going to do that. Because it was obvious, like, I was like, okay, well, this is going to make the fans of the show, like, not really like Ichika very much. And so they'd be like, I feel like especially disappointed if then in the end, Ichika was who Futaro chooses. So I felt pretty confident at that point that he was not going to choose Ichika. But I was fine with that. But a lot of people are like, were you sad that it wasn't you? And I'm like, well, so like, I knew it wasn't going to be me because like my name is Lindsay and I wasn't a choice. So no, I was not upset. I think a lot of fans think that we identify, even if they understand like we aren't literally our characters. I think a lot of people at least assume that like we really identify with our characters a lot. And that also is not true. I really can't think of one character that I've voiced ever, and I've voiced hundreds, who I would say that I'm like similar to.
And
that's interesting.
So some background story or detail of this series. It was so popular that the movie was released last year, if I'm not wrong, in theater, the final movie.
Right. Yes.
And even years after, you go to the internet, you're going to find teams. You're going to find Team Ichika, Team Nino, Team Miku, Team Josuba, and Team Isuki. Even that we know how the story ends up already, people still fight who was supposed to be.
It is funny. Like, and I still get like people who will meet me in person and tell me that Ichika is still their favorite. Like, that's, everybody has their favorite. It's not necessarily Futaro's favorite.
Like, it's like Pokemon, but you only have 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have my favorite one, but I have to always highlight one of my favorite character in that story was the stepdad, Mario. Yeah. I was like, this guy is like in the shadow, but I love this character.
It's a great character.
It reminds me of this guy from Attack on Titan, Levi. But I love his role in the background. So any favorite memory from the whole story that when you think about Quintessential, this is the the highlight story that you remember and enjoy or shock you?
Well, I mean, I can't necessarily, nothing comes to mind as far as like feeling shocked by anything. I'm trying to think like specific memories of like recording for it. I remember like when I found out that Ichika is an actress, I was like, oh, okay, there's something I can relate to. So actually when
an actress playing an actress,
right? And I was like, oh, like that's so meta, right? So when people do ask me like which character that I've played do I relate to the most, I do say Ichika because we're both actresses. She ends up being a lot more famous than I am. But yeah, the show in general, there were a lot of times certainly when like I'd be recording and I would crack up laughing. Like if I was lucky enough to be one of the last actors to record for an episode. So yeah, for those of you watching / listening who don't know, we record individually. And so actors are recorded one at a time for each episode. So we're not there together. Like we don't get to play off of each other. But if we're one of the last to record, we get to hear, they'll have on the English audio track when we are recording the lines that the other actors have recorded. The other English-speaking actors. And so that's always a really great, it makes our job easier when we're lucky enough. And it's just kind of random when people happen to get scheduled. So we've all had the opportunity to be on like both ends of it where we're the first person to record on an episode. And so we're just talking to complete silence and having to react to complete silence. And having it where like we actually get to, hear the way that the other actors have recorded their lines and get to react off of that. So it's easier when that happens and it's more fun. But it's especially fun because the other actors can be so hilarious and like hearing the way that they like chose to perform a line. Sometimes it's like they're so brilliant and it's just so funny. And I know each of the actors like personally too. And so it's like I can picture them saying the line that way. And so it always just like makes me giggle. Yeah. And I thought it was also special too, like the 5 ladies who were cast. I love who was chosen and cast for the show. And I was so happy that the group of us who were chosen. We're all actors who have been a part of this industry for a really long time, and I know all of them personally, and they're all so lovely and such, strong women. So yeah, it was really special that the 5 of us got to experience the show together. Yeah, even though we didn't get to record at the same time.
That's interesting. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what you mentioned about sometimes, yes, you all record individually. Mm-hmm. So you did, just correct me if I'm wrong, you did mention that sometimes if you're like the last one, at least you're able to hear what they've said, mm-hmm. and you're able to react to what other actors have already recorded. But if you're not, let's say you're the first one, mm-hmm. will the clip or the scene be running like just yes. no sound, and then you have to go in, exactly. say your lines, and then okay.
Exactly, yeah. So whether or not people have recorded before on that episode, regardless, you will have the animation playing in front of you, because the most important thing is matching the lines that you're saying, the words you're saying, to the flaps of the mouth. Now, of course, we have the help of the audio engineer that's always present for the recording session. So it's a collaborative effort with the actor, the director, and the audio engineer. The three of us all are always there for a recording session to make sure the line sounds right in terms of performance and everything, but then also making sure that it fits right in the mouth. And so, obviously as the actor, it's like, we give it our best try, right? And like, we'll just like give it a shot, and we don't like know it until we try whether or not we can get it to just fit the way the line is written originally. Sometimes all it takes is the director saying, okay, just can you say it a little faster? Can you say it a little slower? Or if that's not enough, the audio engineer can like squish the audio file slightly or stretch it slightly. And that can make it fit perfectly, but they can't do that too much. Otherwise it'll distort the audio and you can like hear it and it doesn't sound right. So plenty of time, pretty much every recording session I've had that has at least a handful of lines, something has to get somewhat rewritten. And so the director has license to rewrite any lines that he has to in order to make it fit. Now, rest assured, for those of you freaking out, thinking that like, oh no, so then can the director just like change the show and like change, what, if they can just change what the characters are saying, then like that changes the show. And oh my God, I have to go watch it in sub now to know what really happens. They are required to make sure that whatever it is that they change the line to, that it still means the same thing. It's usually a very minor change, like they like take out a word, like rather than saying like, I am hungry, they make it a contraction and have you say, I'm hungry, instead of I am. Like that means the same thing, right? Like it's not gonna matter. It's just a faster way of saying the line, right? So it's like they might take out a word here or there, but it doesn't change the meaning of what's being said. Or they might add a word here or there that makes it longer, but doesn't change the meaning of what's being said. So yeah, they have liberty to do that. And sometimes it's the line, it's, we're lucky and the writer for the show is really, has really nailed it. And the way that it's written, it just actually fits perfectly on the first take, and the audio engineer doesn't even have to do anything to it, and it just like fits perfectly. That happens sometimes too. Usually some kind of adjustment needs to be made to it, whether it be, the audio engineer or on the actor's end or on the director's end or all three of us. And so when we're in the recording booth, we have two monitors in front of our microphone that, we have a good view of. And one of them has the animation playing, and then the other one on the other side has the script. Where we can see our lines, and then we can also read the lines of the other characters that we are conversing with. And so even though if we're the first to record on an episode and we can't hear the lines being said, we can still read what it is that we're reacting to. And so I, just like pretend I'm hearing it, like, I pretend that, in my head, I imagine the actor portraying whatever character is saying the line. And I can, imagine it, and then I react to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, follow along with like the emotions of the scene too, because like like you said, if you're alone, you have to react to something.
Yeah, and that's something also that just it comes with practice. It's not something that anybody's just like naturally good at, I don't think. I didn't feel confident at all in my skills when it comes to like dubbing specifically when I first started doing it, even though at that point I had been acting professionally for like 8 years, because there's so much more to the process than like doing voiceover or on-camera acting, for something that's originally in the English language. So like for voiceover that's originally in English, generally speaking, the show or movie or whatever is animated after the voice recordings are done. So the animation is made to match the voice rather than the other way around. But obviously when something's dubbed, the actor's job is to make sure what they're saying matches the mouth. And so there's this whole other aspect when you're dubbing something where, you know, you need to make sure that like the performance sounds good on the acting side of things, right? So the most important thing to like a director or casting director when it comes to choosing a cast for a dub project is, number one, they need to be like somebody who's an actor and is an experienced actor and has training in acting. Because it's not like they can just teach you in the session like how to like play a character well or like, you know, portray them convincingly or whatever. But something that you kind of do just have to learn on the job, and all of us who do this, we learn it on the job, is like the technical side of things, that the things that are specific to dubbing, like how to balance looking at these two different screens, one with the words that you're supposed to be saying and then the other with the animation. And like, I remember feeling so overwhelmed when I started doing it. Like, how am I supposed to like look at both screens at the same time? Like, you can't. And the answer is like, you don't look at both at the same time. If it's a short enough line, like if it's like 2 words, probably you don't need to be like looking at the script to remember what you're supposed to say. So for something like that, I'll just look at the screen and try to match the mouth movements. But if it's like a 3-sentence long cue, we don't get the scripts in advance. So it's not like I can like work on memorizing it ahead of time or something. So it's just cold reading on the spot. And so there's no way I'm just gonna like memorize that in 2 seconds, right? So I just don't even bother looking at the animation while I'm performing that line. I'm just reading the script, and then we'll see how well it matches. And based on the director's directions, I can slow it down, I can speed it up, or if it doesn't match in terms of like, oh, well, the character opens their mouth really big at the end, so kind of emphasize that part of the line and make it louder, or, you know, something like that. I'll just take their direction on that. But I remember feeling so overwhelmed and stressed out because I didn't know that was okay to just kind of wing it on the first take without trying to make sure like everything is exactly perfect on the first try. And I think most voice actors would agree with me that it's a skill that takes a really long time to feel
comfortable
like it comes, to feel comfortable with, and to like feel like it just comes easily or like it's second nature. I want to say like, I don't think I felt like I could do it easily or I could do it well until I've been doing it for maybe 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
And that was with me like working steadily too. It wasn't like, oh, well, then I'd have like, 6 months where I wasn't working on anything. No, I was like working steadily, and still like, it's just one of these things, like, it's just not easy to do.
Would you say it was the hardest thing to learn?
Oh yeah, throughout my acting career, by far, like the most difficult type of acting I've done is dubbing. But it's also so fun and great because like you can like do it in your pajamas. And it doesn't matter if your hair is done or if you're wearing makeup or whatever, right? Because no one's gonna see you. I mean, like the director and the audio engineer will, but whatever.
They don't need to know.
It doesn't matter,
right?
And like sometimes they show up in their pajamas too, so like they don't care. They get it. Point is like our appearance will have no effect on like how good the show ends up being, which is great.
For me, that sounds the perfect place for work. You don't care about what you're worrying about.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's something that some people will ask me too, like, well, what do you like better since you've done both? Do you like on-camera acting better? Do you like voiceover better? And I'm like, I don't know that I'd say that I like one more than the other. They both have their pros and cons. Like with on-camera acting, it's great that like you always will have those scene partners to play off of, so the actors actually get to play off of each other. You don't have to use your imagination as much, because like you have the set around you that helps kind of like put you in that headspace of like, putting yourself into the shoes of that character and pretending that you're a part of whatever world, right? Whereas like with voiceover, you're in a recording booth with a microphone by yourself. And so you really have to be good at using your imagination. But for on-camera acting, especially like for auditions and whatnot, I hate how much time I have to put into like thinking about like what I'm wearing, would it make sense for the character? Does my hair look right? Am I having a frizzy problem that day because it's humid? Like, how does my makeup look? I hate having to spend time on that kind of stuff, and even like wasting energy worrying about that, because all I want to have to think about is like my performance, right? My acting performance. And what's great about voiceover is you don't have to worry about what you look like, and your appearance doesn't come into play as far as like preventing you from being able to have like play certain roles. For on-camera acting, like you have to physically match whatever. Like I wouldn't be able to play a 12-year-old girl on camera. Like I don't look 12, right?
Very true.
But I can make my voice sound younger, and so I can make that work for animation. I can play I can play a boy in middle school in anime, and I would not be able to convincingly play that on camera, right?
Yes.
So those are the perks to like the voiceover side of things. But I will say that hands down, dubbing specifically is definitely the most challenging of all of like the areas of professional acting that I've done. And it's just because of that technical side of things that just takes such a long time to really feel comfortable doing, and to feel like it comes second nature, so that really all you're having to actually think about is your performance and how you're portraying the character. Because I think that's why it felt so overwhelming for so long, is that I couldn't just focus on my acting performance. I had to also somehow simultaneously think about my timing, and I didn't get the script to look at in advance, and blah, 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 and like, am I too far away from the microphone? Am I too close to the microphone? All these things. But for anyone starting out, rest assured, we all feel that way when we start out. Nobody's naturally good at that. People can be naturally good at acting and just have a knack for that. But like, no one's born like knowing how to dub something in another language.
So I want to talk about, you mentioned how I can be a 12-year-old girl in anime, but not in real life, and all of these things, and then middle school boy, blah blah blah. So speaking of the boys, because we've talked about two female characters already, I'm going to talk about at the same time about two male characters that have kind of like similar predispositions in terms of they were the other main characters confused them for being girls. I'm talking about Ruka Urushibara in Steins Gate Zero, as well as Nagisa Shiota in Assassination Classroom. In Ruka's case, he actually wished to have been born a girl, and then in Nagisa's case, he was a boy, but everybody always confused him for a girl because he's so androgynous, and they purposely draw him very androgynously.
Mm-hmm. And then it's like a whole part of like his backstory and relationship with his mom and all that.
Yes. Damn, Kara, how do you mix these two characters? Like, wait, how you went from Ruka to Nagisa? But
What?
They are very
What do you
different
mean?
characters.
I know, but Ruka, wait.
No, but yeah, they're similar in the sense of like how I had to change my voice or whatever to portray the
right, but
characters.
the audacity to make these two characters like you said, Ruka was born as a boy, wanted to be a girl.
Yes.
No
Right.
spoiler, but some spoiler. Something happened that technically between time shifting and all the scientific magic, it happens. And now we have also Nagisa, which is a young boy. The mom, correct me if I'm wrong, the mom wanted me to be a girl, or she wished to have
the
a
mom
girl.
wanted to have a daughter and like refused basically to accept the fact that she had a son, and so decided to just dress him like a girl and just pretend that he was a girl and treat him like a girl.
That's why it makes those two characters.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that you would bring them up at the same time. Yeah, no, there is definitely kind of a parallel there, even though it's kind of like an opposite thing. But yeah, it is interesting. Yeah. But they both have those androgynous qualities about them too. And Ruka, I voiced that character, or started voicing that character, because then the show like came back years later. But like a really, really long time ago. I don't exactly remember how many years.
It was a long time ago. I think it was like in 2012, something like that.
So yeah, I was really nervous about voicing Ruka when I first found out that I was cast, because at that point, because I hadn't been doing the voiceover I hadn't been doing the anime stuff for that long. I really didn't feel confident in like my like boyish voice or whatever. Because I didn't have a lot of experience voicing characters like that at that point. And I was like, and it was a character I auditioned for and whatever, but luckily the director was so kind, and she herself had lots of experience voicing male characters. So actually, the original dub director for Steins Gate was Colleen Klinkenbeard, who is the voice of Luffy in One Piece. So she has, and then among many, many others too. So she has plenty she has plenty of experience voicing boys. And so she was so great in like helping me and guiding me as we went through the show, and helping me like find that right place to land my voice. And what made it a little bit trickier is that it wasn't just supposed to be a straight up like rough and tumble little boy where I could just like, go full on little boy voice. Ruka had to sound at least somewhat convincing enough as a boy or a girl, right? Because genetically speaking, like he was born a boy, so like he should sound like a boy in that sense. But Ruka also would get mistaken as a girl a lot, so he had to sound enough like a girl that it would make sense that he'd get mistaken as a girl. And so it's like we had to like toe that line and find that like just right balance, and it was really tricky, especially for someone like me who didn't have much experience at all voicing a character like that. And so when I found out many years later that I was cast as Nagisa in Assassination Classroom, I immediately thought of Ruka, because I was like, oh, okay, so it's like an androgynous character like Ruka, different circumstances, of course, but the same idea as far as like a boy getting mistaken as a girl a lot, has some feminine qualities about them. But I was actually even more nervous when I found out that I was voicing Nagisa, even though I had many more years of experience at that point, because the director was telling me when I showed up for my first session to record for the show, that, because I didn't really know anything about the show until I went in to record for it. I didn't even know which character I was playing. My talent agent was like, hey, they need you to come in for a session this week for a show called Assassination Classroom. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. It wasn't even a show I had auditioned for. I don't know if they held auditions for it. So this was a situation where the director for that show had worked with me before on other shows. So he had a good enough idea of what my ability was, what my vocal range was, and whatnot. So he cast me based on that. And so when I showed up to the session and he was telling me about like how popular the manga that it was based on, like how popular it was in Japan, and that like they were painting the like characters all over like the trains there and whatever, and that it was like expected to be, a pretty popular show. And I was like, oh, awesome, sweet. And he's like, and you're gonna play the protagonist, and he's a boy. And I'm like, I was terrified because I still like didn't feel that like I was like great at like doing that kind of voice yet. It didn't feel like I could just like whip it out no problem. And now I felt like there was all this pressure that, especially people who like love the manga or whatever, would watch the show, and I was worried they'd be like disappointed with like the voice that I'd given the character. So I was really nervous. But it took, I don't know, I want to say maybe like halfway through the first season when I finally felt more comfortable doing the voice and felt like I could like just do it without like having to like listen to a reference of what I'd done before to like try to match it just right. Yeah. But now, because of that character, anytime a boy character does come up, I'm like, no problem, I got this.
So I'm not gonna lie, when I was first watching Assassination Classroom, it was on a friend's suggestion, and I was like, okay, you know what, let me watch it, because it was on Netflix at the time too. And I'm like, you know what, I still say a lot of we are living in the new renaissance for anime, and it's mostly due to Netflix, because it's just so easy to get access to anime now. So at the time that my friend had suggested it, I just saw that big yellow happy face in the trailer. I was like, oh, that looks cool. So I'm tuning into it and I'm watching it and I'm looking at Nagisa. I'm like, you're dressed like a boy, but you sound like a girl. What are you?
What are you?
And then sometimes he would sound like a boy, but most of the time he sounds like a girl. I'm like, I don't know what you are, but you have hips like a girl, but you are dressing like a boy. And then you say you're a he, but I'm not sure.
What's going on here? What am I supposed to believe? Yeah. And so, for the first episode, we played around with where to set the voice, and it wasn't up to me, it was up to the director, as far as like how deep he wanted it to sound, how masculine he wanted it to sound. We ended up going with a more masculine sounding voice than like the voice I did for Ruka, for example, because Nagisa himself didn't have any desire to be a girl, right? Like he saw himself as a boy and was fine with being a boy, and gets annoyed when people like mistake him for a girl and all that. But he still has those androgynous qualities, and in order for people to for it to make sense that people would assume that he was a girl, he has to sound enough like a girl for that to make sense, right? So
great job there.
Oh, well, thank you.
I was like, for the longest time, I was like, I can't follow along. But the other male characters are confusing him for a girl, and they even put him in girls' clothes to that extent. Yeah. So I was like, I don't understand. So great job.
I can say we all felt the pressure in the pool episode. All the characters are looking like, okay, we're going to see.
It's so terrible. This is so mean.
We were like here watching the episode. Like, okay, so the moment of truth. Are you going to wear a shirt or non-shirt? And then we're going to close all doubts here. So it was a real pressure on all sides.
What is going to happen here? Oh, what are we going to do?
Were you really okay? So that assassination classroom was a journey technically from the first season that we're like, this is kind of nonsense to character development. Third season, we're like, okay, we are already in love with the background of these characters. The final season, even that we knew season 1 how it's supposed to end, I feel like nobody. Let me ask you: were you ready for that season finale of that series?
I don't think I was ready for how gut-wrenching and emotional it would end up feeling. But I mean, I was pretty sure that the ending was that it was going to end in that way, because it wouldn't really make sense otherwise. That's kind of how it had to end, you know what I mean? But I didn't see it coming as far as how sad it really was.
Yeah. And raw
and yeah. I can't tell you how many people I've met. Well, really anybody I've met who's seen the show and, all the way through, they all have to mention how much they sobbed.
Yes. I was like, I'm watching this. I'm like, I'm not expecting. I'm like, it's such a fun show. I love it. I love everything they do. And then we get to the end. I'm like, why am I crying so much? What's going on?
I know. And I feel like the Assassination Classroom is so unique for that reason too, that I can't think of any other shows, at least that I've worked on, that are so silly and off the wall and just kind of ridiculous, and lighthearted, and also so heartwarming and deep and emotional too. That's not easy to somehow make those things work at the same time, and somehow this show did it, and I feel like it did it so beautifully.
So, fun fact, Yara doesn't know this yet because we haven't released this episode. In the previous episode, in Spanish, we recorded one of the voice actors of the Spanish dub of Assassination Classroom. And we were talking that one of the possible reasons why we suffer so much in that ending is because many of us, we went through terrible school system with the worst education, not the best education, but kind of not the best education. But we all have one professor, one teacher that we all fell in love. That teacher that went above and beyond, that teacher that changed our life by doing something for us, that teacher that meant the world, it meant what we are today. And with that, everybody going through that for sure somebody has that teacher that changed their life. Watching that final roll call was devastating because it's so easy to relate with what they're feeling with that ending.
Totally.
He was saying we all in the Spanish cast, we all cry. Even remember, it's so hard to remember that moment. And I mean, it's a must-see. If you haven't seen Assassination Classroom, please give yourself a chance to enjoy this piece of art.
I know it looks like it's so weird, and you're like, well, what is this about? Give it a chance.
With Kunudon. I'm not gonna lie, I did not like Kunudon. I was like, every time Kunudon would pop up on screen, I was like, this character is so annoying. Why would they even do this? And they were like,
that's another one. It was, intentional. He's this annoying little acorn that you just want to flick away.
Yes.
Kunudon.
Lindsay, quick question. So we talk about how you grew up in during the arts of voice acting, but how did you came into the industry? Do you knew about this? When you were a child, you already knew you want to be an actor, or how did you land in this world of anime dubbing?
So I really, for as long as I can remember, and my parents say that basically from the time I could talk, I always said that I wanted to be an actress. But I started when I was around 10 years old acting professionally. I maybe a year before that had finally convinced my parents to put me in an acting class. And the acting class that my mom happened to find that was nearby was specifically acting for the camera. So usually people get their start in theater, like doing like a theater camp or community theater or something. But randomly, my introduction to acting was film acting. And I fell in love with it right away. And so I decided to continue. I took acting classes throughout all of my teenage years and even into college and stuff. And my focus was always on camera acting. So all of my training has been in on camera acting. I've never actually taken a voiceover class in my life, but it doesn't really matter. And I think any voice actor would agree with that, because most have their background like in theater, for example. Yep. An actor is an actor at the end of the day, and the most important skills are gonna apply to every medium anyway, as far as like, portraying a character believably and reacting off of the other characters and all that good stuff. Obviously there are technical things that are different, but those are the things that you just learn on the job, and frankly aren't as important as your acting ability is. But the way that so actually my first professional acting, like paid acting job, was when I was 10. And it was, coincidentally, it was a voiceover job, because the talent agency representing me, I'm still with the same agency today, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They, especially for kids, they don't like have a separate division of the agency that's like voiceover versus like their on-camera actors. Especially for kids, because there aren't a whole lot of voiceover jobs out there for kids. They usually just like will use adults that can sound younger. But so I was represented by the agency for on-camera acting work, but they asked me if I would be up for auditioning for this voiceover job this is such a weird coincidence. It was for a Japanese company. So random. Not for anything.
It was meant to be.
I know, right? Not for anything animation related, but it was actually for this textbook company that they were producing the audio to go with English textbooks for kids in Japan, like in school in their English classes, to like listen to along with, while they follow along in the textbook, so that they could like, hear how certain words or whatever are pronounced.
And this was at 10?
In American English. Yeah, and so they wanted, so they hired people of all ages. And they went as young as me, because some of these textbooks were for, like kids in 4th grade or whatever. And so they wanted there to be like actual kids' voices on there for the kids to hear. Huh. And so they wanted to hire child actors for that. And it was so fun, and I had such a great time. And it is such a funny thing that it's such a weird coincidence, because I don't think I even knew what anime was back then. A lot of people assume that those of us who are known for our anime roles got into this because of like a love for anime. And for most of us, not all of us, but for most of us, that couldn't be like further from the case.
Yep.
Like I barely even knew what it was. For most of us, it was just kind of a coincidence thing where it's like, I'm an actor, and we were sent on an audition for this company that dubs anime, but like in the same way that we're sent out for an audition for anything else, like a McDonald's commercial or whatever. And so it was just another acting job to me. And I was sent out on my first audition for what was then known as Funimation. Now it's, melded into like Crunchyroll. So there, I guess, is no Funimation anymore, but it's the same people and everything. But anyway, Sony, right? Although back then Funimation was its own thing.
True.
And they were
That's true.
independent and everything. But so it was a much smaller operation back when I started. So it was back when I was 17, actually. So I remember my mom had to sign the contract for me because I hadn't turned 18 yet. So I couldn't sign my own paperwork. But I auditioned for the first time. And I think my only awareness of like anime at that time was I hadn't even ever watched any anime, but I at least, had some like awareness of Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and like maybe Sailor Moon.
The classics.
Like I'd heard of them, but I had never even watched them. Okay.
Oh wow.
So I had no concept.
No, you were really far removed.
I was very far removed. I didn't grow up with it. I have no idea why. Probably because I think part of it is we didn't have cable growing up.
Ah.
So all I really had to watch as a kid was like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Now I'm kind of curious here. I'm going to get a little bit personal, going a little bit backward.
Yeah.
So your mom, you mentioned backstage that your mom is from Puerto Rico too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you grew up in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
born
were
and
born
raised
in Texas.
in Dallas.
Texas. But I'm kind of surprised because in Puerto Rico, I mean, I'm not very proud of saying this. That's kind of personal opinion. The support from parents for their kids going to the fine arts is kind of rare. Parents saying, oh yeah, you want to be an actor, painter, anything related to the fine art is rare to find them. Mm-hmm. And when you telling me that your mom was super supportive from the beginning, I'm like, wow, she's one of the exceptions to the rule.
Well,
the fact that she's supporting her from the beginning.
Yes, that's an excellent question. So my mom was always really supportive as far as both my parents were like, that's great that you enjoy doing that. And sure, well, we can put you in classes if you want to take classes and whatever. But from their perspective, I think they just saw it as in the same way that a kid might want to be like, I want to learn how to play the guitar. Will you sign me up for guitar lessons? Their parents don't usually think oh my God, they want to be a rock star and they think they're going to become a rock star. That's so unrealistic. So I don't think my parents, they didn't take seriously this idea that that's what I would end up doing for a living or try to do for a living. Because I was so young at the time, right? I was 10. And so I think they were like, sure, whatever. And
it's gonna be for a summer, maybe two.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure,
I don't think they took it too seriously when I was like, I want to be an actress. The reaction was they didn't say this out loud, but internally they were like, yeah, you and everybody else.
At any point, did they say oh, most Hispanic people, parents are yeah, but you have to study XYZ?
It was never brought up in context of cultural background. So my dad, for example, he's Jewish American, so his background is not Hispanic at all. But my parents felt equally that what came first was school. But that was never an issue for me because that was actually something that I personally always valued my whole life. It was important to me. I was always very self-motivated as far as getting good grades, and I always wanted to go to college and study and be well educated. That was something I wanted for myself. That actually, and maybe that was something that I'm sure, part of that is because my parents instilled that in me from a young age. But I think, to give them credit, they did a really good job of, rather than it feeling like it was them pressuring me to focus on your studies. It was more of emphasizing from a really young age, how great it is to have the opportunity to get a good education, and how fun it is to learn and to be knowledgeable about various subjects, and how, regardless of what you choose to do in life, being well educated and all that can help in any career and any path that you take, or even if you're going to be a stay-at-home parent. If you have an education behind you, you can still use that, whatever you do in life. And so it just was something I always valued. I think part of it too is the school that I went to. I went to a really, not like super small, like, my mom, I know the school she went to in Puerto Rico, for example, she went to like a private Catholic school. Then that one was like really, really, really tiny. So I went to a local.
You know the name?
Colegio La Piedad. I don't even know if it's. I have no idea if it still exists. I don't even know, but the school I went to is a small-ish private school where the culture there was such that like everybody there was motivated to like get good grades, and school was important to them regardless of whatever their like extracurricular interests were. And so, luckily I didn't have to deal with clashing of like, my parents being like, you're spending too much time on this acting thing when you should be studying for your test tomorrow or whatever. Because I actually always did put school before the acting stuff. I think because I never thought that like, oh, if I had to like not, pass on an audition and not go and audition for something because there was a test I had to study for or something. It wasn't like I was worried that would mean like, oh no, and then like I'll never have another opportunity ever again to be able to audition for something. You know what I mean? Whereas with school, like, I don't know. I think it was just the environment I was in. And I wanted, to make sure that I got to go to college. That was something I really wanted to do. And so, I just always put school first, and I'm glad that I did. And then when I went to college, I entertained the idea of like majoring in something acting related, whether it be theater or something else. But I actually ultimately decided, because I'd been taking acting classes my whole life, that I wanted to study something different so that I could learn some other stuff, and also always have like a degree in something else to fall back on if necessary. Because like no one will dispute the fact, like career in the arts is it's a much less reliable paycheck than like your standard 9-to-5 job, right? And so I ended up double majoring in marketing and psychology. And so, that's what I ended up studying in college. And I don't use either of those degrees. But
you have a good place to.
But they're there if I ever need them.
True.
Hey, before we wrap it up, one of your latest work that was, I feel it was a major hit, and I fell in love with this series. Why Raeliana End Up at the Duke's Mansion? Damn, what's a big title.
Yes.
And you had the main...
It's such a long title. Yeah, it's funny when anime shows... it's not unusual that anime shows will have like a really long title like that. And I think it's because saying the same thing in Japanese, like it doesn't, for whatever reason, it take as long to say, I guess. But then when you translate it to English, it's really long. But yeah, it's funny.
I mean, but nowadays it's an essay.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, at least give it a good background story what you're about to watch. Even that, no, I take it back. The title doesn't reflect exactly what really happened in the story. It's way more deeper than the title. Tell me about the experience, because this is a very interesting case. For me, it was kind of special, this series, not only because it was a simul dub when it was released on the spring of this year. It is a South Korean web novel that inspired the video game from South Korea, and we have an anime.
Yeah.
So what about the experience dubbing, giving your voice to Raeliana?
Yeah. So definitely a really unique situation as far as like the source material and what it's based off of. I definitely have never worked on anything before that was based off of not even just like a Korean, I think they call it like a manhwa. Is that right? Am I getting that?
Manhwa.
Yeah. Manhwa.
Yes.
But I don't think I'd even done anything that was based off of anything Korean at all. So I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And I didn't, this was another case of, I didn't audition for this show, actually. It was another situation of, I'd worked with the director before, and she thought I would be a good fit. So she just cast me in it. And so I knew the name of the show going into it for my first session, but I didn't really know anything about it. For the most part, I actually don't bother doing a whole lot of research ahead of going in, because sometimes, I don't know, when I've done that before for various shows, I've found that it can kind of make me overthink things too much, or get in my head about it. So I like to just go fresh, clean slate and let the director tell me whatever they think I should know before getting started on it. And so I went in, and Caitlin Glass, the director, who is fantastic and also an amazing voice actor herself, it's always the best when you get to be directed by directors who also are voice actors. That's always the best time. But anyway, because they know how to direct you to get to get the right performance, if that makes sense, because they've been on the other end, experiencing getting the direction. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off track here. So yeah, she told me that it was based off of a Korean manhwa, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. So she told me about it, and what's interesting, she was like, I just started reading it, so that I, as the directors usually, if a show is based off of any kind of manga or anything like that, usually they will read that source material, because it can obviously be helpful as a director for sure. So she was like, yeah, and I gotta be honest, I have no idea what to expect from this show, no idea how high quality it's going to be, but whatever, we'll have fun with it regardless, right? So I went into this without any kind of expectations of it being anything special. And so it was a really pleasant surprise when pretty quickly, only, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 episodes in, that was it. I had fallen in love with this show. I had fallen in love with my character and the other characters. And I was like, wait, am I wrong? This is so good, right?
It happens to everybody.
Yeah. And the director too was yeah, I was not expecting to like this show this much. He's like, but now I'm really invested.
Even the audience, I feel like many of the audience, when it came first announced from Crunchyroll and new simul dub, it really caught us off guard. We didn't know what it was about. Yeah. And it was one of those many that we just jump in without knowing what to expect about it. Yeah. And like you mentioned, by episode 3, I was already waiting. Damn, I need to wait another week. What happened here? And I was shouting back because I had to wait one more week because the way it finished that episode. So for those who haven't seen, how would you describe this series?
So I would say that it's a romance series. So it is a love story, but there's more to it than that. Also because so Raeliana, which is the character that I voice, the story's told from her perspective, and unlike many female characters that are, in a romance, a lot of times, those characters can be very surface level, and it's just I feeling girly and in love. And that's not at all what this show is like. I love that I get to live out like my princess dreams because she gets to wear all these pretty dresses and it's like, you know, royalty and all of that fancy stuff. But she is absolutely not a damsel in distress. Raeliana she doesn't take any sass from anybody. She doesn't let anyone talk down to her. She is intelligent and will stand up for herself, and she's strong and can shoot a gun very impressively.
No,
I might add.
About it.
Yeah, like she can hold her own, and I think that is so great. I love that, especially when it comes to a character that's part of a romance. That's really rare. So
correct me if I'm wrong. So this is a isekai. She died in real world. We still don't know why. She even doesn't know how she died. We only know somebody pushed her from a building. That's the only thing we know so far. Even turned out, and she reincarnated. And the story that she read about it. Right. She read the story, but so she reincarnated and a character. And the story, the character she reincarnated is about. She knows that the boy is going to die too. Right. So she's like, I read the book. I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
But wait, is this one the one that you were watching that she had to like act evil towards a certain character?
She's, I don't know, evil, but she's not like Lindsay
she had to bully another character?
No, she's kind of aggressive.
I mean, she can be aggressive and very sassy. Well, I guess, if you're watching maybe certain scenes out of context, it can probably seem like she was bullying a particular character who, but there's
bullying her.
Yeah, there's a very good reason for it, don't worry. Because that character she's bullying was trying to kill her, and she knows that.
I think it's just me. I think I'm just confusing it with something I'm actually reading right now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Lexi Nieto is there. Remember, we watched and said, "Oh, that's Lexi Nieto."
Okay, yes.
And I don't know what's happened to you, Lindsay. So yes, when the story starts, we start like falling for this series, for the character, for Raeliana. Yeah. But for me, the moment that really wrapped me up, that really fell hard in love with the story, is the moment when they're in the boat and the fireworks.
Yes.
They wrap it up.
Me too.
That was
I got butterflies. I got goosebumps. I was like, wait, oh my God. What's so funny too is so Ian Sinclair, who is the English voice of Raeliana's love interest. I know him in real life, and I've known him for many, many years. And the voice that he does for the character is not like what his normal speaking voice sounds like. It's amazing because basically the director told him you go wild, give it just the most sultry, sexy voice you can do. And he was like, no problem. And it is so fantastic. And every single girl, including myself, including the female director of the show, anytime we're watching the show and we hear his voice, we're like, God, I think I'm in love with you.
I gotta watch this something now.
Up. I'm telling you, girls and guys, Ian have a unique voice.
Yes, and how does he do that? But then it's it feels wrong because I know Ian, and it's it's not like that,
but. I mean,
but it happens. It's somebody with such a good voice. It happens. You're listening and you're like, oh, please keep talking.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, and I feel I'm fangirling about Ian here. It is not. It is not only Ian's tones of voice or his tone. It's the way he acted, the way for the whole episode. He showed this character that is cold, serious, but have a background story, and he's very So perfect.
Yes, and it's my favorite kind of love story too, where like one of the characters, in this case, Ian's character, is this guy who's like, generally very cold and like isn't, affected by anything, doesn't really show emotion. But then when you start to see that like he cares about Raeliana and like has a soft spot for her, oh, forget it. I am such a sucker. I am such a sucker for those kinds of love stories.
Come on. The story starts with a blackmailing. Raeliana is blackmailing the dude right now on the episode 1. And again, Lindsay, that episode 6, the ending, because it was so many elements that really make that episode it will be the best one in the whole series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
First, we have the opening, the Japanese singer, which is Min Darin. I'm super fan of her songs that she make, and for that ending, I think nobody saw that she will perform a special song in English. So I'm here watching the whole scene, and suddenly I listen to her singing the song "Don't Let Me Fall," and I'm like, "Holy crap, this is going deep!" And suddenly, we going to end up with like classic way where kiss or something like that. Boom, she's like jumping, like, "Oh my god!" and credits, and I hear like,
"Oh my god." Seriously, yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the song because that added so much to it. It was like as soon as, like she started singing. And this is, remember, like I'm experiencing this in the booth recording for it. It's not like, so when I'm talking about this, it's not me watching it after the fact. This is like I'm in the booth recording for it. And I'm like, as I'm doing the scene and I like hear it happen, like I like get goosebumps. My eyes start watering and I'm like, what is happening to me? But something about how that song just like hits and like with the way it's animated and everything, I don't know. It just like, it's so, I don't know. It's like such a magical, emotional moment. And it's just like, I was just like really feeling it.
Right. And that ending, even that. So we're just fan here with that episode 6. For that point, we have a moment with the character when she saw the girl with the golden hair that was like, boom, credit girl on, and people scream like ice cream. From there, the story now starts changing the gears. Now Raeliana is like, okay, so I saved myself because I knew I was going to die, my character, but I survived. But I never thought that's a chain reaction now.
Yeah.
So, and that last segment of that arc for me was so deep. The message, how she's like trying to, because I have seen many isekai, but we never seen an isekai when the character is like constant, like, oh crap, I changed the story. The story as I read it is no longer the book. What I had done, what's going on, what can I do now? And I can't wait for season 2. I know
I can't either. And I'm like, I hate that we have no idea like when it's gonna be either.
It is fresh. It is a fresh manga. So we're like, Korea,
come on! Truly, like, I am just as like desperate for more as you are.
Oh my god, yeah,
but
definitely.
You know what? As somebody who's never watched this, maybe I watched maybe like 30 seconds of it. I'm like, now you guys have made me want to watch it. And I'm like, I'm going to sit down and go watch it from the first episode.
You should.
As an ambassador of the slice of life stories, yes.
Yeah.
And for me, that I had to go to conventions. For me, I was so happy to see this because when we go to our panel, one of our panels is anime inspired in video games, which is kind of hard to find. But the fact that this new anime, big hit from Korea, and is truly inspired by video games. So I'm like, yes, I got it. And it's something fresh. It's something different from the story in video games. So
awesome.
Bring me more. Lindsay, this has been so wonderful. I need to hold it here because we want to keep for 2 more hours. Like big fans.
I know, we got to be careful with me because I could just like keep talking forever.
Lindsay, thank you so much. It's been a great honor having the opportunity to talk to you today.
You're both so sweet. Thank you both so much for having me. This was genuinely so much fun for me. As we talked about briefly before, my mom is Puerto Rican. So as soon as my agent told me that this was a Puerto Rican podcast, I was like, okay, well, done deal. We're going to make this happen. I have to do this because I am very proud of my half Puerto Rican heritage.
I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
So yeah, I love to be a part of anything related to that. Like, I mean, I swear, anytime, like, you know, it's a rare occasion, but occasionally, like, I'll see someone at a convention or something wearing, I don't know, like a t-shirt or something with a Puerto Rican flag on it. And I've got to, like, I have to flag them down and be like, guess what?
That's so cool. That's so awesome.
Yeah, but it's great because they're always so excited about it too. So.
Definitely, trust me, having somebody. We're like, finally, some representation, somebody from the family in the industry.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna lie. Whenever it is really special for us, like diaspora, just living here in the States, and then we find another fellow Puerto Rican, and we're like, what is this?
Yeah, it's so special. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, it's like finding like a long lost family member or something.
It is.
Yeah,
especially
so
Puerto Rico. Everybody's our family. So we're like, where you are? Oh yeah, from the Rivera, from the Coamo Central. Or like, oh yeah, I know your uncle, the uncle of the uncle. We're family. Let's drink together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Lindsay, which social media for those who haven't followed you, they can follow you?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say Twitter, but like I guess it's called X.
Say
now.
Twitter. We still tweet, so keep it the Twitter X.
The platform formerly known as Twitter.
But
that's what they put in every single. That's what they put in every single. What do you?
Email.
No, not email.
Yes, on the emails too.
I can't remember the name in English. It's okay.
That's fine.
News article.
Okay, yeah. Right.
I'm not going to show you my email, but right now, one of my email, X, formerly Twitter, in parentheses.
In case you're confused. Yeah, don't get me started on all that. But anyway, my handle on there is, and this is like, I know it's a really weird handle. Give me a break. I came up with it like when I was, 10. I don't know, like 16 or something. And there was some sort of inside joke it was based on, and I don't even remember what it was, but
even better.
Yeah, even better. Severely Lindsay. What does that mean?
Honestly, that sounds cool. That sounds cool.
What's going on?
I feel like it sounds really lame, but I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, so severely, like the word like severely, so Severely, and then my name, Lindsay, which is spelled Lindsay. Everyone wants to spell it with an E instead of the A, but it is spelled with the A. And for those of you who don't know, the spelling with the A is actually the original spelling of it.
Boom.
There you go.
So it's the correct
history lesson
spelling.
for you.
If you disagree, don't bring the hate to social media, please. Keep the hate for you.
And then Instagram, that's the only other social media I have. I know I'm an old lady who does not have TikTok, but I do have Instagram. And my handle on there it's just my name, Lindsay Seidel. I already spelled Lindsay for you, and then Seidel is Seidel, which is another name that's really easy to misspell, but I have faith you'll find me.
And if you guys still have problem with the spelling, go down to the description of the video. You're going to find this link to the social media. So just click over there.
Or you can just look at her name right there throughout the entire video.
Oh yeah, it's literally right there. What do you know? I spelled my own name right.
And for us that subscribe, like, and share it on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, anything that can cross your mind, X, Twitter, anything, anywhere else. So thank you so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Sayonara.
Bye.
Adios.